So before we get underway with our next speaker, there's a huge thank you attached to it because Christian is from TELUS, and TELUS is one of our platinum sponsors. So gratitude and thanks and a show of appreciation for TELUS for being a platinum sponsor. And Christian and I had a quick little chat before we came on stage, and we always check, how do you want to be introduced? Do you want your full resume? Do you want your LinkedIn profile? What would you like? And we came up with the fact that you basically get paid to be professionally offensive.
That's
and
right.
With that, Christian Cordero.
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, Vancouver. Hope you're all enjoying your time here. Such a beautiful room, beautiful city. Well, I'm coming from Edmonton, so it's always beautiful here. But yes, I'm here today to tell you a story. And this story is particularly scary because it's about this customer that was doing, on paper, everything right. If you're an auditor and you look at them, like you're good, you're doing this, you're doing that, everything is good to go. You get a pass. However, customer reached out to us not long ago for this red team engagement. That's not how the story started. And despite the fact that they were doing everything correct on paper, we were still able to obtain full system occupation. If we were a criminal association of any kind, we would have been able to exfiltrate data, deploy ransomware, all that stuff that gets you on TV, not for the reasons you want. So I'm very happy that we were able to do that before actual criminals did, and I'm here to tell you the story. But before I do that, so stories from the trenches, how a red team exercise gained full control of a client network. Before we get into that, I'm just going to quickly talk about my practice. So I'm the offensive security manager. I'll try to be nice today. And I'm part of a group of professional services that we focus in cybersecurity. So my team performs all of those activities that I'm going to talk a little bit very quickly in a few moments, but we also have services such as all sorts of compliance, all the frameworks, NIST, CIS 18, PCI, you name it, incident response, other things such as managed security awareness and those types of services. People are like, you do that? Yes, we do. We're not just your dad's phone company. We have a very sophisticated professional services practice, and our cybersecurity practice is very, very advanced, and we have the opportunity to work in these very high-profile engagements. My practice specifically, we do penetration testing, vulnerability assessments, all of those services, and I'm not going to go into all of those in detail, but I just wanted to differentiate penetration testing from red team simulation, because I noticed that sometimes people use those terms interchangeably, when in reality they have different meanings. On a penetration test, let's say you hired me to perform a penetration test, and I used to be one of the consultants on the team. I miss those days sometimes. You know everything that's going on. You know when I'm starting, what I'm scanning, the what, the when. If I find anything critical, you will know immediately so you can mitigate. You're always in the loop. On a red team simulation, that's different. There is an overlapping technique. We don't use industry-grade tools because, as you know, criminals do not use, they don't have a Qualys subscription. They don't have a Tenable subscription or Rapid7 or any of those excellent tools that we have out there, because that's just not how they operate. So on a red team simulation, we don't use any of that because we need to be quiet, we need to be invisible, we need to be ghosts so we can actually deploy the attack. And nobody on the client side knows except one or two people who hired the engagement. A typical penetration test, if you have performed one before, it goes about 5 to 10 days, depending on what you are testing, how many targets you have, how many systems you have in scope. It's typically a time-boxed engagement in that sense, and there's not much time. All the assets, all the targets are provided in advance. There are some options between white and black box and all that. On a red team simulation, We get nothing. One person or maybe two come to us and we want a red team simulation. Like, okay, so we obtain some primary goals. We agree on things, do's and don'ts. So for example, let's say your organization, let's say in your database, you have personal financial information of your customers or your employees. You get to say, I don't want you to touch that. That's off limits. Okay, or SIN number information, that's off limits. We don't touch those. The second we find a way to get there, or maybe there's a chance we're going to put in that position, we either communicate or we just abort altogether and move on to a different stream, a different attack. So we agree on do's and don'ts. Any HR policies that you have in place, because social engineering is a big part of the red team simulation. If you're not familiar with, can I get a show of hands who's familiar with the term social engineering? Good, good. If you never heard before, that's the art of hacking people. And that's the most fun part of it. One of the things that we do in my practice is phishing simulation, so phone, like voice solicitation. We don't use robocalls. We actually have people phoning in and tell a story, use a pretext, and we obviously have some goals in mind. Sometimes it's to obtain a password. Sometimes it's to obtain credit card information. Depends on what's been agreed upon with a customer. On a red team simulation, we use all of those techniques. Those engagements, they can be long. A red team simulation can be very long. And sometimes budget, as we all know, can be a constraint. Sometimes time, the duration of the engagement can be a constraint. Sometimes you have both, but you don't have enough people to, for example, deploy mitigation in time for you to retest. So when I was designing this program, I had a few things in mind. I was thinking, okay, I need to come up with something that allows flexibility, allows for time for both the customer to deploy mitigation and correct assets, but I also need time to act like a criminal. I also need time to deploy my attacks, to deploy my sensors, to contact people, to ask those questions, to document everything without being detected. If I'm too noisy, their SIM is going to start sending notifications. The EDR is going to catch me if it's been properly configured, which was not the case, but I promised myself I would not give any spoilers of this story, so let me stay on track here. So I broke this down into phases. Phase one of the engagement is where we start the information gathering. We go on the clear web, dark web, deep web, depending on the customer, the target, and what we're trying to find. And we just gather information. LinkedIn is our best friend because on LinkedIn, we can find who works with who's friends with who, your background. I remember one time, that's not this story. In fact, this was 2 jobs ago. Within 5 minutes of scanning a website, I knew that their head of HR had gone to high school in Germany and spoke 3 other languages and her phone number. So if I was planning a red team attack or a social engineering attack right there, I had everything I needed. And we all know that, but we all keep divulging our information on the internet voluntarily. So we do that. We go for the information gathering phase. We have some tools that we use to make our lives a little easier. We gather all that information, we document everything, we put a plan together, and we get ready to attack. We design the attack, and then we move on to phase 2, which is executing the attack. That one is a little more similar to a penetration test, but quiet. Phase 3, purple team. If you're familiar with offensive security or military, because that's where we borrow these terms from, we always have the attacking side, which is the red team, and we have the defending side, the defensive side, which is the blue team. In cybersecurity, we have this thing called purple team, which is when the attackers, in our case, the offensive security consultants, work alongside the IT consultants on the customer network. In that case, we have a list of attacks, a list of techniques, a list of exploits that we test, deploy. While we're doing that, the defensive side, the blue team, is monitoring execution, is watching for, okay, what is my SIM doing when this exploit's running? What kind of alerts are going up? Is the EDR doing anything? So they're monitoring the activity. That's the purple team activity. In the context of my red team offer, the phase 3, purple team, that's where the value is. That's what you're buying. Because that's when, after having collected all the information and designed the attack and delivered the attack, we're telling you, hey, this is how we did it. This is how we broke into it. And most importantly, this is how you fix it. That's phase 3. Phase 4, that's war games. I know it's a little Hollywood, but makes things fun, makes things more interesting. War games is kind of like the retest. So oftentimes when you do the pen test, then you proceed with mitigation, you fix your things, deploy a new firewall, update your rules, escape your SQL strings, whatever the case might be, train your people, and then we try again. On war games, that's the same idea. So for example, if after doing the purple team and you fixed everything, we try to deploy the attack one more time. Let's say in the first attempt, we tried deploying the malware using phishing, voice solicitation. We do USB drops. All right, who's familiar with the USB drop in here? Show of hands. Okay, well, for those who are not familiar with USB drops, and those are super fun. So let's say I'm going to target your institution and I'm gonna use a USB drop-in technique. So go on Amazon, buy a bunch of USB keys, I don't know, 10, 20, however many, whatever the best deal is, and I create my own malware that would, when you put your USB key in your computer, it executes something. Hopefully I'll be able to execute. It doesn't always work, it's not a perfect science, but upon successful execution, calls back to my buddy in the parking lot who's with another laptop, and now I have a connection to your workstation. But why would you do that? Why would you grab the USB key and put it in your computer? It's not very smart. Well, the way I do it, and a lot of people use that method, is when I'm preparing the USB key, I'll put a logo of your institution on it. So I'm going to use BCNet as the example. I'll put a BCNet logo on it, and I'm going to put a label on it, like, I don't know, layoffs 2024. Bonus 2024. New head of human resources. Anything that you're like, oh my goodness, I need to see this. So I need this list. And when you grab the USB key, you put it in, there's no list. There's no list. That's you've been in Ricky Road, as they say. Is that still a thing? People still say Ricky Road? No? Yes? Good, thank you. I'm dating myself here. But so that's the USB drop. So whichever technique we used first on phase 2, deploying the attack, we use a different one in war games. We have not been doing as many war games sessions as we would like to right now for various reasons, but hopefully we'll be doing more of those in the future. So that's the red team methodology. Depending on how much money you have in your budget for that or how much time you have for that, we can modify the duration of these phases to accommodate that. Each phase can be anywhere between 2 weeks and 3 months. So if you're doing a very large engagement, we can do a 1-year engagement, 1 phase per quarter, and there's that. So let's get to the story here. The story. Then now that we have all the background and then we're all on the same page, let's get to the story. So a few months back, this customer calls us. It was the first time I was interacting with this customer. And like many people, they need a penetration test done. So, don't mind if I do. I like penetration testing, but let me get to know you a little more. This is something I see a lot with consulting firms. Oftentimes, they will give you exactly what you want, but not necessarily what you need. So when he asked, I need a penetration test, and I started probing with those questions. Well, have you done a penetration test before? I was like, yeah, penetration tests every year. Been doing that for 5 years, 5 or 6 years, so many years in a row. Okay, great. Do you mitigate stuff? Yeah, I do. We're good there. I'm like, all right. Do you have, how about your peopleware? Are they all trained? Do you have those security awareness programs in place? They go, yes, we do. We train them for phishing quarterly, if I recall correctly. They had a program in place. Good. How How about monitoring? Well, we have an EDR in place, and they had a SIEM too. All right, that's good stuff. So again, on paper, everything right. So what I'm thinking is, you have a very high cybersecurity maturity. And then I tell him, I'm happy to do a penetration test for you, but the results you get will be similar to the other ones you got in the past. Because you're so consistent with this and your cybersecurity maturity is high, it's going to cost you about this much, and then you're going to get results similar to this. Send a sample report. It goes like, yeah, that's aligned with what we typically get. All right. And I said, well, instead, why don't we do something more interesting? Why don't we do a red team simulation? And you go, red team simulation. And I explained to him all of those phases and the engagement. They're like, oh, I didn't realize I could do that. I thought I was doing everything there was there to be done. I was like, oh, no, you're not. You're missing out. You should do a red team simulation. So he agrees on it. And we have a few more conversations. He signed the statement of work, and we get to the job. This was very interesting. So we only had that one point of contact at the customer firm, and he was not a technical person. He had, many institutions, they have sometimes the IT people report to the CFO or report to another director or a senior executive who's not necessarily an IT person. This was one of those types of institutions. So he was not a technical person. He was aware of it, knew a lot of it, but not a technical person. It was one of those scenarios. High cybersecurity maturity, as I mentioned. And their primary goal was attempting to obtain domain privilege escalation. So once we get in, can we elevate our initial access to some kind of admin level access? Because he was doing everything right, he was not super confident on how successful we would be. But then we start with the engagement, and the secondary goal was to obviously transfer knowledge to their team. So okay, we agree on everything, let's rock and roll. So we started with information gathering, and that was very cool. We followed the process, LinkedIn and websites, and we got a list of people from their team. We got a list of about 10 people. Out of those, we were able to obtain about 5 or 6 phone numbers. We found their connections, where they worked, the areas, etc., all that. And we documented all of it. We also went to their website. At this point in time, I'm sure you're all aware, you can view the source code of a website just in your browser. So we do that. And we grab their Google Tag ID. Every website on the internet has a Google Tag ID for statistics and such. So we grab that ID. And then we social engineer, my apologies. We do an open source intelligence gathering on the tag ID. And things started to get interesting because we found a number of websites, about 10, using that same Google Tag ID. Most of them were previous iterations of their website, some dev sites that they just forgot about it. One of them was an actual attack. One of them was an actual clone website that someone out there was crafting an attack and had it ready to go. It wasn't clear at that point if there was an attack yet to be executed or if it had been executed. But we found it, we documented, we got it all there. During that process, we also found a number of domains that used to belong to them, but they forgot to renew. And we're like, okay, this is the way in. One of the domains had their full name, but instead of .com at the end, was .mm or .bb, like 2 letters that were not one of those shady domains that you see you have out there. So okay, well, let's register this domain for us. And now we have access to it. So we do that. We register the domain. And because that domain used to belong to the customer, he already had a reputation on the internet, making it a lot less likely to get caught on spam filters for email filtering and all that. Okay, so let's save that. Then we create a replica of their website that looked like an IT support type of website, and we developed our own malware. What? You guys develop your own malware? Yes, we do. We have some really good people who can do very dangerous things there, and I'm happy they work for us. But yes, we create our own malware, and we put on the website for download as the Windows Security Update. Like, all right, we're ready to roll here. We have the names, the phone numbers, the pretext, the website. Let's go. So we called the first person, hung up on us. That's pretty typical. Called the second person, same thing, kind of got angry, called us names, hang up on us, which is good. Could do without the name calling, but that's okay. It's better that way. Third person, that was that was very interesting. Do you know that meme where there's an audience, kind of like this one, not as pretty as this one, because this one it looks really good from here, you should see it. But anyways, that everybody collectively face palms? You know that meme? That was us when this happened. So we call the third person, and the person like, oh, hi, how are you? Like, yeah, well, sorry to call you out of the blue. I'm Carl. We're all Carl when we're doing vision calls. That's our, we have like 10 people, we're all Carl. Like, oh, hi, this is Carl from Help Desk, and I'm sorry, bear with me here, I'm new, and I'm just helping because we deployed a Windows security update yesterday, but not all workstations got the update. So I'm just checking if you, in fact, did not get the update, because I'm checking my logs here, no logs, and it looks like you didn't get it. Can you check for me? And we had some steps. She checks, it's not there, obviously we just made it up. And she's like, oh, I didn't get the update. Like, oh, that's okay. It's really easy to install. I have some steps for you here. So we just give her the website, legit website, right? It's got their name on. She gets in it, downloads the Windows update. She gets a security alert. That was a part we were like, it was nerve-wracking because up until that point, we were not sure what kind of permissions the users had. Is it gonna let it run? Is it not? What's gonna happen here? So we're hanging to the chairs and, oh, I got a security alert here. What do I do? And we're like, that's okay. You can just click accept. Yeah, right? And she's like, okay. Gets worse. So she clicks accept and it runs. We're like, oof, it ran. We see the connection. It calls back to our lab. We're connected to her computer. We're like, all right. Well, we got the update now, and then she interrupts. She's like, you know what? As I'm doing this, I'm talking to my colleague here. She sits just beside me. She also didn't get the Windows update last night. I'm going to talk her through the process here so she can also stay safe. And we're like, thank you. Right? Because, yeah, of course we want more access, but we also want to stay under the radar. We don't want the whole team getting security updates now, because then eventually someone who knows what they're doing is going to be, what are you doing? Eventually she stopped, and then my buddy on the show, like, why am I getting 4 incoming connections here to the lab? Like, well, hopefully that will stop. So we stop calling, we get back on track, and we're like, okay, so now we have access. What we need to do now is to obtain persistent access, because if one of those computers restart, we lose the connection. So we modified a Windows DLL, we put a wrapper on it to perform that system call before getting into the DLL, side-loaded via the connection we already had, and then we have persistent connection with those computers. Even though we had 4, we only did that to 3, because we want to be quiet. So we do that, and as we have persistent access, we start doing the next phase of the attack, which is similar to a pen test, but a little slower. So we start trying to find vulnerabilities and opportunities to move laterally and all that, escalate privilege. And when we get to their VPN connection and configuration, we see that on the VPN template for connection, there was one field where you would include the role of the user. And it was just clear text there, and it said user. I'm like, okay. Well, let's try changing that from user to something else. Let's change it to admin, DA, or combinations of those terms and see what happens. So we did that. And after trying a few times, submitting that connection with a modified VPN template, eventually it was successful and connected to the VPN as domain admin. So now we have a domain admin type of connection. We can obviously access the network. We found the domain controller, and we created a domain admin account for us. At that point, we had all our IOCs, indicators of compromise, screenshot everything, document everything, and we were ready to move on to our next phase, purple team, to teach the team and all that. But before that, we had to deliver the news. And that was funny because this was like 2.5 months in, and it's been crickets since we started. So we called the customer, like, hey, we just wanted to get on a call with you here about an update on the red team. So we set up a video call, we're on camera, and it was funny because he was sitting on his chair, kind of sitting back with a big smile on his face. Like, oh yeah? How's that going? Like, well, glad you asked. So I start telling this story, and as I'm telling him the story, I can see him moving in his chair and kind of sitting straight, and his face is slowly dropping and getting more serious. And he's like, and as we're done, and then we have domain admin. He goes like, can you just give me a moment? He goes on mute, grabs his phone. I don't know what he was saying, but it was like, like that. And then he just goes like this on the screen, and people start joining the call. That's his IT team. Comes off mute, and he's like, can you tell these guys the same story you just told me? All right, so we tell the story, and they are just like, how did that happen? And they start asking questions, and we were answering the question, but can you do this, can you do that? Like, yeah, I can. Here, we send a screenshot of his own workstation. It's like, oh my goodness. Like, yeah, we can do more things than you can because you are under Windows security controls and we're not. And yeah, so there's that. So it was a very scary situation because, again, they were doing all the right things. So we do that, and now that they are, okay, well, I'm glad you guys found that out before an actual attacker did. And then we started planning the next step. So for the purple team phase, that can be done in a few different ways. That can be done through a series of webinars. That can be done through one-on-one sessions with the developers. In our experience, if you have a large team of developers, say 5 or more, oftentimes we start with a webinar, and then you have your developers talking to themselves, planning something. If it's more like a big network and you have 1 or 2 network admins, one-on-one sessions sometimes work better. Whatever the best methodology is to deliver and to pass on and to discuss the findings, we're happy to accommodate. So we did that. This engagement did not include War Games, phase 4. So that was the end of it when we were done the purple team phase. So we did the purple team phase in terms of next steps. In conclusion, War Games was not in scope. And they were looking at getting a new EDR at that point because they did have an EDR and they did have a SIM. And that was the biggest thing the biggest surprise for the whole team on the customer side. They said they got 0 alerts. After everything that we have done, they were not notified by their EDRs, there were no SIM alerts, nothing. Now, what I don't know is, there are a few scenarios in my mind. Maybe they really didn't. Maybe they did, but if you don't configure your SIM properly, you're getting alerted by everything. You're getting that wall of like noise and you don't know what's what. And by the way, tell us we also have managed SIM if you need someone to help you with, okay, my SIM is too noisy, we can help you with that too, but I digress. So that's a possible scenario. They also had an EDR. I'm not gonna say which EDR is. It was a fairly known one. Let's say, not a top 5 one, but a top 10 one. Fairly good, but obviously misconfigured because it didn't catch when we registered the domain. It didn't catch when our side-loaded DLL initiated a new process. It didn't notify on any of those things. It didn't catch any of those things. So it was obviously misconfigured. So they were considering either getting a new EDR or perhaps getting some help managing the EDR for them and all those things, which we're happy to do that work too when there's a possibility. So that was the engagement. And after the end of that engagement, they deployed everything. They are now considering doing a new pen test this coming year to go over mitigation and see, okay, are those issues fixed? Can you still sideload things? But what made me more surprised of the whole thing, because you expect technical issues. You expect misconfigurations here and there. What surprised me the most was how at this point, at the time in 2023, they still had people going through security awareness campaigns and still doing all those things, still providing information, still being agreeable to someone they have no idea who they're talking to. And that's why the human firewall is so important. You invest so much money and your time with new firewalls, with new systems for monitoring, for tracking. And the second someone like, oh yeah, my colleague didn't get a security update, you got $500,000 just down the drain. That just happens. And it's scary how often that does work. And I just wanted to tell that story to you today. Make sure that the conclusion of the story would be, keep doing your pen test, but make sure you're not only targeting your servers. Make sure you're also targeting your workstations. Oh, but I have 10,000 computers. Do I need to test every single one of them? No. Maybe we grab a sample of them. If you have, let's say, 5 Windows images that you just deploy on all your computers, we grab some of those and we test them. And it will tell you, are you able to install software and all those things, right? Security awareness, same thing. Are you training your people? But how often? Are you doing it once a quarter? Are you doing it once a month? How are you verifying that? Are you only doing phishing simulation? Are you trying other techniques too? What are you doing and how often do you verify that? And how well configured your monitoring systems are. Those would be the key takeaways that I would like to leave with you today. If you make sure those things are being done properly and you're verifying as often as you can, keeping that balance between making things secure and convenient, of course, that should leave you in good shape. Thank you very much for attending the session today.